Hey there, Squirrel Army. How's it going? For today, we're doing another of the Lord of the Rings Commander precon upgrades. This is for the Abzan Food and Fellowship Commander deck. Alright, so I've already talked about both of these commanders in being partner commanders because that's what this deck's all about. It's a partnership deck. The commanders do work sort of together, but I've already given all my thoughts on this pairing and what I think the deck is all about. If you want to check out more of a detailed description of what I kind of think of this pair and the deck that's kind of trying to be built around it, I'll put a little thing up there for you guys to click and go and check out the video that I did on them. It is a fairly recent video. It's not that hard to find, but still, it's just sometimes easier to find those links if you're very interested in more of a detailed view. In this one, we're not going through a very detailed view. I'm just sort of saying, hey, if you want to know more, check it out, whatever. Otherwise, we're just going to move on in just a sec. So, yeah, it's one of those things about these that it just takes way too long for me to analyze, even though some of them are pretty simple. Like what we're going to do, it's worth always analyzing what your commander's trying to do and thinking about, okay, well, how do I make this work or whatever, and that sort of thing. So I always do that with all of these, and I just find that it's easier if people want a more detailed view to go and check the video out that's a more detailed view, because, what really builds the deck isn't that much of a detailed knowledge. You don't really need to have that to build these decks, really, or upgrade them, or whatever. You just need to, well, I need to understand them, but, you don't need to understand them that much if you don't really want to. You don't need to understand the lore if you don't really want to. I don't really understand all the lore because it is what it is, and whatnot, but whatever, it is what it is. So again, we're just going to get along going and check out the deck list. Alright, so now we're going to have a look at the deck list. As always, you guys can easily find this by Google searching it. It's anywhere and everywhere. Alright, so after having a bit of a look at the list, again, they've really stacked this mana base pretty darn well. I don't know what to think of these mana bases being half decent. But it is half decent at least, so I'm not maybe even gonna change it too much. I might take out the gain life lands, even though gaining life is kind of part of our strategy. The tapped nature of the land to gain one life is often too insignificant for us to actually care enough about it. So, plus again, we honestly don't need that much. We only need to get to 2 ring temps, and then we're starting to do really what we want to do. So, it's alright. Also, one of the biggest things I've noticed about this deck, we need way more ramp. It's just it. Also, why the heck do we have all these, well, not all of these mana rocks, but why do we have mana rocks in a deck that contains green? What are you doing? This is the one deck that doesn't need mana ramp from artifacts. And yes, Soul Ring, okay, you want to keep that. That's really good for any deck. So that can stay, that's fine. I'm not going to change that because anyone else will just put it back in, so there's no point in me taking it out. But the rest can go. Like Arcane Signet, Commander Sphere. Maybe the Pristine Talisman can stay. I feel bad about saying that. I'm sure there's a mana dork that does the same thing, so I'll try to find that. Um, Otherwise, I will find something to replace it with. So I have come up with the list of cards that are in this deck that are just kind of, they're there. So I know what I'm gonna cut. So I'm gonna go away, find myself some cards to add to this deck and make it better. So I'll show you guys what I come up with. You can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing. Alrighty, so we're here to check out the finished list. Spent about $50 on the list. Again, about 22 cards. So we're really consistent this time. I don't know what's going on, but whatever. It's all cool. Again, if you guys aren't interested in me explaining what's out, what's in, what's hot, what's not, all that stuff, check out the deck list. It's there in the comments. So you can just go there and check that out, copy, paste, do whatever you want with it. But for those people who do want to see the explanations of what and why and how and where, I'll go through it. So first, we'll go slightly through what I've cut. Again, not really going into super detail. The tap lands, cut those out. Put a couple of more basics in. So that was about it there with the lands. The rest of the cards were mostly just higher cost cards, that or spells I felt were very one-off. And not that one-offs are the worst, but you need more things, and most of your one-offs are usually your removal for the most part and things like that. So it needs to make a big impact if it's a one-off, and if it's a one-off that makes a big effect, it still needs to be relatively efficient to some extent. You can't just cast a 7 mana spell that kills one thing. Even if you can flicker that creature or whatever, cool. Like, you're still wasting mana and time. At 7 or 8 mana, you could be winning the game. So there's no point in just casting a 7 mana thing to destroy a thing or whatever. But anyway, yeah, just a lot of stuff that I didn't feel was worth the time. Mana rocks that we just don't need. So, yep, that was pretty much it. These are the cards that I've added to this list. Actually, there's one missing here. I added it a Baleful Mastery, but whatever, that's fine. It's not a huge spell that you absolutely need to add. I just felt like I kind of needed to. And I just feel like it's better than go for the throat. So, but whatever. Anyway, not really going to talk about the instance because it's just good removal. So, not much there. Nature's Law just for ramp, extra ramp spell. Couple of enchantments. They all gain us life for the most part. Blind Obedience also makes our opponent's things come in tapped, so that's nice. The Cleric class can buff our commander. The last mode on it's not that amazing, honestly, but the first two modes are pretty darn decent. Even if you've got to spend a bit of mana to just kind of get it there, the one mana investment is certainly well worth it because your Journey's Welcome does basically the same thing. So, and that's in here, and this just does more if you just happen to have a bit of mana lying around. Even the third thing, it's not that horrible, but it is a one-off effect. So if you've got a real lot of mana around and you got nothing better else to do, maybe, sure, whatever, that's fine. I might even go first a little bit. Port Cutthroat. Our stuff dies, we ping our opponents and gain life. That's pretty nice. It can be a deterrent to people board wiping or killing our stuff. So, and it's not like we're a sacrifice deck, but we can sacrifice our stuff by blocking or by just chump attacking or whatever, things like that. So, or you can just put Skull Clamp in here or whatever. So, there's that too. So, Witch of Moors, if we've gained life, our opponents have to sacrifice creatures, and then we can return creatures from our graveyard. So that's alright. Even if we don't get something back, making our opponents sack is well worth it. Veto, when we gain life, our opponents, our targeted opponent loses life, I believe, actually. But still, that's really good because we are gaining lots of life, and I was trying to figure out other ways to weaponize our life gain, so that's alright. Suture Priest, when stuff enters under our control, we gain life. When it enters under opponent's control, they lose life. Soul Warden and Soul Attendant do the same thing. They gain less life when our stuff enters, so that's alright, I guess. Regran took. We talked about him a little while ago, I think. Whenever we make a token, we make that many tokens plus a food. So we're making food here and there throughout the deck. So just getting additional food, even if we're very unlikely to sack it to actually get the life. Sometimes we will. But yeah. The Blight Priest, it's much like Veto, but it makes each of our opponents lose one life. The Veteran, a lot like Soul Warden, Soul Attendant, on the front side at least, because he has Disturb. So gains us life when creatures enter under our control, and makes our opponents. Oh no, no. And on the other side, when our creatures leave the battlefield, we gain life. So can protect us a little bit from certain things, but yeah. The Orator is basically the same thing as Soul's Attendant, Soul's Warden. Just creatures ETB, we gain life. Elves of Deep Shadow taps to make a black mana, and we lose life. We're gaining so much life in this deck, we don't really care, and I felt like we needed another mana dork. The Sadistic Pilgrim, again, more life gain for us when our creatures enter, And when our creatures die, our opponents lose life.
Dina Soul Steeper gains his life. Dina Soul Steeper, when we gain life, each opponent loses life. Also, we can sacrifice stuff to make it buff it up, but that's not a very relevant thing. No, it's not completely irrelevant for us. It's still not the most relevant thing, but still we can do stuff with that. That's still fine. It's still doing a lot of what we want. Daxos, Blessed by the Sun, more life gain when our stuff enters our battlefield, so that's all right. The Bloodsucker. At the beginning of our upkeep, it pings each of our opponents and we gain that much life. So that's really, really good. Gains us 3 life and essentially deals 3 damage divided amongst our opponents. So that can get our activations really going quickly and whatnot. So that is the list for here today. Let me know, guys. What do you guys think? Write your thoughts down there in the comments below. I will be doing a deck tech on some of the sub-commanders coming up eventually soon. So I hope that you will join me again in those ones.